Though, ano yan siya, mas broader ang mas malaki to, yung immunoglobulins kasi natin na hindi siya kapareho ng ibang plasma proteins, very unique siya, kaya na-separate siya. Okay. So, first and foremost, we talk about the major functions of the blood. Given that we're talking about plasma proteins, they're mostly present in the blood. So, respiration, that means O2 and carbon dioxide, transport, nutrition, excretion, acid-base balance, water balance, defense, transport of hormones, transport of metabolites, and coagulation. Marami siya actually. So, given na ito yung functions niya, pag nakukulangan kayo ng dugo, especially for hemorrhagic cases like multiple stab wounds, ganyan, tapos bumababa yung hemoglobin mo ng around 9 to 10, definitely kailangan mong salinan ng dugo. So, what's the biomedical importance of plasma protein? Yung function ng blood primarily carried out by the plasma proteins, most of it. So, transport, hemostasis, homeostasis, and immunologic responses. We will talk about it, sunod-sunod yan sila. Yung hemostasis and wound healing, next week na natin pag-uusapan yan kasi may certain chapter lang siya, chapter 34 sa Harper's. So this is the table derived from your book. Yung mga functions niya. Sobrang rami actually, pero mainly transport talaga ang mo dito. Transport and immunologic responses. So when we talk about plasma proteins, diniderive natin sila usually by grouping. The book talked about based on solubility via ether. So na-divide sila sa tatlong group, fibrinogen, albumin, and globulin. Pero nowadays, ginagamit na is electrophoresis. Meron tayong electrochemical gradient, tapos meron tayong anode and cathode charge areas, tapos pinapatakbo natin siya ng electricity, tapos kusa na lang silang magse-separate. I will not talk too much about this kasi pang medtech na to. I just want you to understand na ganito yung ginagawa pag separate or pag-group ng mga plasma proteins natin. So, meron tayong plasma proteins na nakikita sa alpha 1 band, alpha 2 band, beta, and gamma. Most commonly sa gamma is your immunoglobulin. Sila yung makikita mo dyan. Then, albumin, may sarili lang talaga siya kasi siya yung may pinaka-abundant na concentration. Nakikita niyo yung letter D na diagram. Yan yung basis ng concentration. Yung pinakamarami talaga is albumin. So, one of the functions of your plasma proteins is to maintain the osmotic pressure inside the blood vessel. Take note, inside the blood vessel. And it mainly equates to 25 millimeters mercury. Diniscuss na ba sa inyo yung Starling's forces or Starling's principle? Wala pa? Hindi pa. So sa Starling's principles, general ko lang, meron tayong osmotic and hydrostatic pressure na nagko-control sa fluid flow within the blood vessel and the tissues. So on the arterioles, meron tayong osmotic pressure, maintained yan na 25 millimeters mercury, applied pressure by the plasma proteins. When we say osmotic pressure, yan yung pressure na para mahawakan mo yung fluid para hindi siya lumabas sa blood vessel. Then we have the hydrostatic pressure and the interstitial space pressure. Yan yung applied pressure ng fluid mismo. So when the hydrostatic pressure is greater than your osmotic pressure, tendency is lalabas yung fluid mo or yung water mo from the blood vessel to your interstitial space. Kung mas malaki ang hydrostatic pressure kaysa sa osmotic pressure. Pero kung mas malaki yung osmotic pressure mo kaysa sa hydrostatic pressure, ang tendency is aakyat yung fluid mo from your interstitial space to your blood vessel. Yan yung nangyayari sa arterioles and venules. Sa arterioles, generally speaking, mas malaki yung total hydrostatic pressure mo kaysa sa osmotic pressure mo. Meron siyang pressure gradient ng about 13 millimeters mercury. Isama mo na yung interstitial space hydrostatic pressure. So yung tendency is mas malaki yung hydrostatic pressure kaysa sa osmotic pressure, hindi mapapanghawakan ng arteriole yung tubig. Lalabas siya from the arterioles, pupunta siya sa interstitial space. Now, doon tayo sa venules naman. Maintain yung osmotic pressure natin. Pero yung hydrostatic pressure natin, given na lumabas na yung fluid kanina from the arterioles, pumunta na sa interstitial space, tapos nagcapillaries na, tapos palabas na siya to venules, bumaba ang hydrostatic pressure natin to 17 millimeters mercury. So yung tendency is that mas malaki yung osmotic pressure kaysa sa hydrostatic pressure, hihigop siya ng tubig from the interstitial space. Kasama na yung mga waste products natin. So that is generally the Starling's forces. I-elaborate yan sa physiology ninyo. Tapos later on sa biochem. Pero that's the gist of your Starling's forces. Now, saan ginagawa yung proteins natin tapos ano yung characteristics? 70 to 80% is synthesized in the liver by your hepatocytes. Exemption: von Willebrand factor, vascular endothelium, gamma globulins, plasma cells. Those are some exemptions. Mga importante ito silang proteins na hindi ginagawa sa liver. Then, characteristically speaking, most are covalently modified by adding oligosaccharides on the amino or carboxylic area. Diba yung ating polypeptide merong amino end, carboxylic end. Nagdadagdag yan sila ang liver pag nagpo-produce ng proteins ng oligosaccharide chains. Some hindi lang sugars yung ina-add, some fats rin yung dinadagdag. So depende lang sa function nila. Then they exhibit polymorphism. When we talk about polymorphism, one gene, many phenotypes or many expressions sa gene. So ang binigay na example nito is your ABO blood typing. Certain one gene, chromosome 6 ata, long arm of chromosome 6 ba yun or chromosome 9, nagproproduce siya ng tatlong type, A, B, and O. We will talk about it pag usap natin ng RBCs na. Ako yung magdi-discuss naman yan. Then they exhibit half-life. When we talk about half-life, concentration in a certain hour or a certain kung magkano yung nababawas kalahati sa isang oras, that's half-life. So those are some of the characteristics ng plasma proteins natin. Now, let's talk about albumin. Albumin, siya yung pinakamalaki yung concentration sa plasma natin na plasma protein. It is mainly produced in the liver. 12 grams per day yung rate. And it is 25% of the total hepatic protein synthesis. Tapos yung kalahati nun, ng 25% niya na-produce, yan na yung 12 grams per day na sinisecrete niya. Only 40% is circulated in the plasma and it represents 60% of the plasma protein by weight. So please take note, albumin is the most abundant plasma protein. It also contributes to 75 to 80% of osmotic pressure of human plasma. So, yung 25 millimeters mercury, siya yung may 75 to 80%. So, ano yung clinical significance nito? Patients having hypoalbuminemia, that means mababa yung albumin sa blood, would tend to have edema or more fluid on the tissues rather on the blood vessel kasi hindi siya nakakahold yung blood vessel mo hindi nakakahold ng water or yung blood mo hindi nakakahold ng water kasi kulang ng albumin. So tendency is lalabas siya sa tissues, mamamaga yung pasyente. That is one cause of your edema. And please take note, it consists of only a single polypeptide chain. Sobrang haba, pero na-form siya to an ellipsoid with 3 domains. So alam niyo, hopefully na-discuss na sa inyo yung 4 structures ng proteins, primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. Please take note, single polypeptide chain lang ang albumin. And it also functions as a transport protein. So this is technically your albumin. Convoluted lang siya and formed to an ellipsoid. Tapos by 3 domains. Domain 1, domain 2, and domain 3. Now we talk about acute phase reactants. Baka kayo mabigla kasi mabilis masyado yung transition ng albumin. Konti lang kasi yung diniscuss sa albumin sa Harper's actually. Ang pinakamaraming diniscuss sa chapter na to is yung iron transport and metabolism. Kahit yung acute phase reactants hindi na inelaborate. So what are your acute phase reactants? When we talk about acute phase reactants, those are substances that either increase or decrease in the presence of inflammation. Please take note, in the presence of inflammation, not infection. It may increase as much as 100 times in chronic inflammation. And the primary stimuli for acute phase reactants, please take note, interleukin 1. Interleukins will be discussed during RBCs and WBCs. We will talk about it. Elaborate ko yan ng interleukin. Pero please take note lang, the stimuli for acute phase reactants and inflammation, interleukin 1. So this table provides yung mga the positive and negative acute phase reactants. I just want to mention the C-reactive protein. Siya yung pinaka-famous kasi siya yung pinaka-clinically used sa mga acute phase reactants. When there is tissue injury, for example, or let's say inflammation, osteoarthritis, pinaka-common sa patients na na-admit, masakit tuhod for matagal na, tapos namamaga. Tapos gusto malaman ng doktor kung edema ba or inflammation, yung pamamaga ng tuhod. They will request CRP. Pag mataas ang CRP, usually umaabot yan ng 300s, 400s to 1,000 pag acute inflammation, then we can say that that is osteoarthritis. Okay? In flare. Pero kung normal yung CRP mo, baka edematous, baka may problem ako sa albumin. So that is the clinical use of your C-reactive proteins. Isa pa dito is fibrinogen. Another test is ESR, erythrocyte sedimentation rate. Ginagamit ang erythrocyte sedimentation rate for inflammation din, to detect inflammation. Pag mataas ang fibrinogen, prolonged ang ESR mo. So we can say na may inflammation na nangyayari sa katawan ng tao pag prolonged ang ESR kasi mataas ang fibrinogen. Mas bumabagal yung pagbagsak ng erythrocytes sa ESR. modulation. Actually, 1/3 ng chapter tungkol kay iron. Yung pag-uusapan natin kay iron summarized sa image na to. So basically, iron can only be absorbed by your enterocytes either on a ferrous form, Fe2+, or on a heme. Bakit heme? Kasi Fe2+ siya. Pag may ferric dyan na pumasok sa intestines natin, intestinal lumen, kailangan mo na siyang i-convert to ferrous para ma-reabsorb. Once na ma-absorb na siya, either is to store siya to ferritin or ilalabas siya sa circulation gamit ang ferroportin. Pero take note, kung ma-absorb siya, kailangan ferrous. Kung ita-transport siya and is to store, please take note, ferric state or Fe3+, oxidized iron sa circulation and sa storage. Pero sa absorption, please take note, reduced iron or Fe2+. So once na i-excrete na siya ng ferroportin, i-convert siya to ferric state by hephaestin. Tapos ang magdadala sa kanya si transferrin. Depende kung saan. Kung kailangan mo siya sa hemoglobin para sa RBC formation mo, dadalhin siya sa bone marrow, pwede rin dalhin sa liver para mag-produce ng mga enzymes. So, pero please take note, pag tapos na siyang gamitin, like for your RBCs, yung lifespan ng RBCs is 120 days, idadalhin siya sa spleen, i-degrade, i-extract, gagamitin ulit yung iron. Tapos, itra-transport siya, i-convert siya by ceruloplasmin to ferric state again. Then, gagamitin ulit siya. Isi-circulate lang siya hanggang i-excrete na siya. Ihimay-himayin natin to from the absorption to the usage sa bone marrow tapos sa excretion. Kasi every process may certain protein. Kaya siya linagay dito sa chapter na to. So iron, normal body iron is about 3 to 4 grams. Normal stored iron, take note, 1 gram lang. Tapos normal daily iron dose is 1 to 1.5 milligram per day. So please check, especially females, yung tinitake ninyong mga iron supplements during menstruation or kung talagang ginagamit nyo araw-araw, please take note na ang normal daily iron dose mo lang dapat is 1 to 1.5 milligrams per day. Dietary iron mainly absorbed in the proximal duodenum. As ferrous or heme form. And your ferric form is converted, yung sinasabi ko, to ferrous before absorption. Please take note, yung protein na nagko-convert from ferric to ferrous is your duodenal cytochrome B protein. Naka-embed yan sa lumen, sa intestinal cells ninyo. Then ferritin, iron storage protein. Again, sinabi ko ulit, transport and storage is on the ferric form. And the ferroportin naman transfers iron from across the basolateral membrane to the plasma. Absorbed ferrous will be converted to ferric by hephaestin prior to export to transferrin. So ito siya yung summary ng absorption. So your ferrous can be easily absorbed by the divalent metal transporter 1. Pero pag ferric siya na pumasok sa katawan, kailangan siyang i-convert sa intestinal lumen to ferrous by your duodenal cytochrome B. Then your ferrous inside your intestinal cells, pwede mo siyang i-store to ferritin, pero kailangan i-oxidize to the ferric form para siya ma-store. Take note, ferric form. Then ilalabas siya na yung sobra na hindi na kailangan i-store, pwedeng gamitin sa circulation, ilalabas siya as ferrous form by ferroportin. by ferroportin. Pero once na lumabas siya sa ferroportin, para matransport siya ni transferrin, i-convert siya to the ferric form by hephaestin. Protein rin yan.
Katuro pa.
Okay. Lahat yan na nakalabel dyan na ferritin, cytochrome B, divalent metal transporter, ferroportin, hephaestin, those are very important in the iron absorption. Pag may problema to any of those, may problema sa iron absorption, pwede kang magka-anemia. So please take note, iron distribution. Most of your iron is seen in your hemoglobin, about 70%. Konti lang yung tinatransport pati ini-store. Almost lahat nasa hemoglobin. And additional information lang to, 1 gram of hemoglobin combines to 1.34 ml of oxygen. So around 20 ml yung dala na oxygen in a 100 cc na blood. So ferritin. Ferritin is the iron storage protein. It is composed of 2 dozen polypeptide subunits, either heavy or light type. Heavy or light chain. So heavy, it contains your ferrooxidase activity. Siya yung nag-o-oxidize ng iron mo from ferrous to ferric para ma-store. Si light chain naman, for stabilization lang siya. So please take note, heavy converts ferrous to ferric to be stored and light for stabilization. Small amounts is in the plasma, and please take note, it is proportional to iron stores. Kung ano yung measure mo sa plasma, it equates to kung magkano yung naka-store na iron mo sa katawan. And hemosiderin, it is a partly degraded form of ferritin, appears in tissues during iron overload. This is the 3D model of your ferritin. Please take note, iron core, ferric state na tinatabunan ng kanyang H subunit and L subunit. H subunit maintains the iron in a ferric state, and the one that stabilizes is your L subunit. This is the image of your hemosiderin. Yan na brown na yan. Yan yung partly degraded form na ferritin, also known as hemosiderin, na nakikita mo sa hemochromatosis na cases. Pag sobrang iron, for example, mayroon kang hemorrhagic diseases, constantly na sisira yung hemoglobin, na-release yung iron mo, or any liver problems, nakakaroon ka nito. Anyways, pag i-discuss nyo to sa histology and pathology, I'm just showing this to you kasi yan ang mga granules na yan, ferritin yan na partially degraded, also known as hemosiderin. Now we're done with the storage. Let's talk about the transport. Please take note lang ha, transferrin transports your iron in the ferric form, and only about 30% is occupied. Pwede mo siyang gamitin for chronic alcoholism, yung mga carbohydrate deficient form, pero hindi tayo gumagamit niyan dito. And concentration in the plasma represents the total iron binding capacity of the plasma. Merong dalawang receptors yung mga recipient cells, like your liver or your bone marrow cells. TFR1, transferrin receptor 1 or transferrin receptor 2. Your transferrin receptor 1, yan yung main receptor niya. Siya yung kumakabit talaga kay transferrin para ma-engulf ng cell. Si TFR2, more of a sensor lang siya. Tapos in the liver, meron pang ikatatlong transmembrane protein for iron monitoring, your HFE protein. So this is the diagram that shows the absorption of your transferrin. So apotransferrin, wala pa yung iron na kasama. Then your oxidized iron babind sa transferrin mo, around 30% yung binding sites makukonsume. Tapos i-engulf siya ng cell mismo. Tapos i-extract yung iron into a ferrous state na siya. Either gagamitin sa heme synthesis or isostore to ferritin. Please take note, on the heme synthesis, reduced iron siya or Fe2+, pero ang storage Fe3+ or oxidized. Then once na na-extract na yung iron sa kanya, ilalabas naman siya sa cell to the circulation to get another oxidized iron. And the cycle continues. Pag kailangan mo ng iron, tuloy-tuloy lang to siya. And malilesen actually yung pag-form ng ferritin. More on heme synthesis siya and enzyme synthesis. So the regulation of formation of transferrin receptor 1 and ferritin. It depends on the level of circulating iron regulated by the iron regulatory proteins. Your IRE or your iron response element at the 3' and 5' end of the untranslated region of the mRNA coding for the ferritin and TFR1. Please take note, yung IRP mo magre-react lang kung mababa yung intracellular iron mo. IRP will bind to the IRE 3' of the untranslated region. Don't worry, my diagram to. It will promote TFR1 synthesis. So the more TFR1, the more transferrin that will bind to the cell, the more iron to be absorbed. Pero kung mataas siya, yung iron mo, intracellular iron mo, mas nalesen yung TFR1 synthesis mo. Another one is your IRP binds to your iron response element at the 5'. 3', 5' nasa nasa mRNA and transfer RNA. Ito siya. Itong diagram na to describes what I was saying kanina. If you have a low iron, your tRNA of your ferritin marerepress, magbabind kasi yung IRP mo sa 5'. Pero sa TFR na mRNA mo, para mas maraming TFR ang ma-produce, pupunta siya sa 3' ng mRNA ng TFR para mas maraming TFR na ma-produce. Basically, nasa protein synthesis. Hopefully na-discuss na sa inyo yung protein synthesis kasi ito yung yung basic idea ng protein synthesis, tapos pag-maintain ng TFR pati ferritin. So please take note, IRP will only react if your intracellular iron is low. It will bind to the 5' of the translational RNA of your ferritin para bumaba yung synthesis ng ferritin, and it will bind to the 3' of the mRNA that codes for your TFR1 para mag-increase yung synthesis ng TFR1 and the more iron na ma-reabsorb. Please take note, paulit-ulit ko itong sinasabi, the transport and the storage form of iron is in a ferric state or oxidized state or Fe3+. So ito naman yung flow ng iron once nasisira na yung RBCs natin. Given the fact na around 70% of the iron in the body is in the heme, we should know kung paano siya nare-recycle. So once iron becomes a byproduct in the heme catabolism in the macrophage, in the spleen, Your ano yan, your spleen is divided into white pulp and red pulp. Si white pulp, doon yung graveyard ng WBCs. Yung red pulp naman, doon yung graveyard ng RBCs. Sa red pulp, maraming macrophages na kumakain ng dead RBCs. So after 120 days, dadalhin siya sa red pulp ng spleen, kakainin ng macrophage. And within that macrophage, i-degrade ang heme to protoporphyrin na eventually magiging bilirubin and your iron to be recycled. Once na masikret siya in the circulation by ferroportin, please take note, ang nag-o-oxidize sa kanya, hindi si hephaestin. Si hephaestin mainly on your intestinal cells. Sa macrophage mo, once na ma-degrade na siya, and kung bumalik ulit sa circulation, yung mag-oxidize sa kanya, si ceruloplasmin. Take note of that, ha? Absorption, hephaestin, recycling, ceruloplasmin, ang oxidation in the circulation. Now, your oxidized iron would be bound to your transferrin. Tapos, gagamitin na ulit siya. Around 25 milligrams per day yung nare-recycle sa macrophage. So, this is mainly yung sinasabi ko kanina. Pero, I just want to talk about ito lang siya, na iron lang. Pagkatapos niyang ma-degrade, iron, tapos yung heme mo, o yung protoporphyrin mo na part, magiging biliverdin. Ceruloplasmin, as I said kanina, it will be the one to oxidize your excreted iron from your macrophages. It is the major copper-containing protein in the plasma. It oxidizes ferrous to ferric form in the blood after heme catabolism. And once na may lack of copper ka, it leads to ceruloplasmin deficiency. Wilson's disease, favorite question ko to sa mga students ko sa medtech. It is a mutation in the gene for a copper binding P-type ATPase and blocks excretion of copper in the bile. Accumulation of levels of copper interferes with the incorporation of the metal to the ceruloplasmin in the liver. So, pag interfered siya, bababa ang ceruloplasmin mo, konti ang mag-oxidize. It is usually treated by penicillamine. So, why should iron be always bounded? Ito yung Fenton reaction. Pag hindi bounded yung iron mo, it will create free radicals that causes tissue damage. So, kailangan once na ma-oxidize na siya, kailangan agad siya makabind sa transferrin. Kasi pag hindi, magwawala yan siya. Siya yung ano mo kasi si iron actually, kung iano natin sa klase ng friends natin, siya yung marupok na kailangan palaging may jowa. Kasi pag walang jowa, nagwawala, nababaliw. Ganyan si iron. So kailangan talaga meron siya always transferrin or bounded siya sa ferritin or bounded siya sa heme. Kasi kung mag-isa lang siya, ibang usapan. So this is the pathognomonic sign, I guess, for Wilson's disease, Kayser-Fletcher ring. Lagi itong tinatanong sa pathology exam. Patient, may nakitang Kayser-Fletcher ring, ano yung problema? Decreased ceruloplasmin or abnormal copper reabsorption. Yun yung idea niyan. Yan na Kayser-Fletcher ring, copper yan, na embed sa cornea. Now, paano doc kung hindi umabot yung RBC sa red pulp? Kung mismong sa blood vessel natin o kaya sabihin natin blood vessel sa intestine or blood vessels sa heart, siya nasira, nag-rupture yung RBC mo, tapos lumabas na yung mga hemoglobin mo, sino yung magdadala sa kanya? The answer is haptoglobin. Okay? Hindi nyo yan makakalimutan kasi yung acronym ng hemoglobin is HG, HB pala, sorry. Tapos si haptoglobin, HG. HB binds to HG. Free hemoglobin in the circulation may damage the renal tubules, and haptoglobin binds to free hemoglobin. Ferric, transferrin, hemoglobin, haptoglobin. It has three polymorphs, HP11, HP21, HP22, and decreases during massive hemolysis. Why? Because kailangan nga niya mag-bind to your free hemoglobin. So pag maraming nag-lyse na RBCs or nasirang RBCs sa circulation, siya yung magbabind at magbabind niyan. Please take note as well that kung wala ng hemoglobin, ang heme na lang yung nasa circulation, hemopexin naman ang magdadala. And yung hemoglobin mo or your ferric heme, si albumin yung nagdadala. So paano nyo to aaralin? Always associate yung transport protein dun sa mga sa kanilang mga dinadala, like your ferric, transferrin, your hemoglobin, your haptoglobin, your free heme, your hemopexin, and your ferric heme, your albumin. Copper, ceruloplasmin. Ito yung mahirap sa Zoom. Hindi ko alam kung naiintindihan o hindi. Kasi tahimik masyado. Anyway, let's talk about hepcidin. It is the protein that's synthesized by the liver that moderates the level of iron. Take note in the circulation. It binds to your ferroportin that leads to its degradation, and pinakatrabaho niya is pababain yung iron sa circulation. Given, for example, may problema sa iron metabolism, sobrang raming iron, yung function niya is sisirain niya yung any form or any possibility na yung iron mo papasok sa circulation. So it leads to the decreased absorption of iron and release to the circulation. Target niya is hypoferemia. What are the factors that promote synthesis of hepcidin? In the liver, it is promoted. Take note, yung third natin na regulatory protein kanina, HFE protein binding to TRF2. Tapos mag-activate siya ng expression of HAMP. Then magpuproduce siya ng hepcidin na. Ikalawa, your bone morphogenic proteins or your BMPs binding to hemojuvelin. Protein yan which activate your SMAD signaling proteins that would lead to your hepcidin na naman. And your interleukin-6, activating your JAK-STAT pathway. Please take note of this kasi ito yung mga signaling or your pathways para mapababa yung iron mo sa katawan. HFE protein binding to TFR2, bone morphogenic proteins, and interleukin-6. Yan na tatlo. Please take note of that. So ito siya yung function niya. Hepcidin inhibits the ferroportin sa hepatocytes. Kung kailangan na ilalabas yung iron, hindi makakalabas. Yung sa recycling, ilalabas sana pero hindi malalabas. Yung inabsorb natin na iron from your diet, hindi rin magagamitan. All in all, ang mangyayari nito, masostore lang to sa ferritin. Now the question is, iron deficiency and anemia, IDA, characterized as your microcytic hypochromic anemia, mainly caused by dietary deficiency, malabsorption, gastrointestinal bleeding, or episodic blood loss.
I didn't understand that.
Decrease of total transferrin levels to 20% or below leads to hemoglobin synthesis impairment. Iron deficiency anemia is characterized as microcytic hypochromic anemia. That means small and pale RBCs. Small and pale RBCs. Your erythrocytes in IDA have increased. Take note of the characteristics. Increase yung kanyang transferrin receptor 1 and decreased in heme. What are your diagnostic biomarkers for IDA? Soluble TFR, na-increase and na-accumulated protoporphyrin kasi hindi siya nakakabind sa globin mo and iron actually. Free ang protoporphyrin mo, tataas siya kasi walang iron. Soluble TFRs mo tataas din. As I mentioned kanina, hemochromatosis, iron overload. Makikita nyo yung hemosiderin. So, yun yung ating all about iron. Natapos natin yung one-third ng ating discussion. Let's talk about serum inhibitors and proteolytic enzymes. Magtanong lang ako, nakuha naman, no? Val, Artuge, nakuha an iron transport and homeostasis?
Slight doc.
Anyways, ano tayo? Ibibigay ko naman tong PowerPoint sa inyo. Gawin nyo na lang tong study guide. Everything is lifted from the book naman. So, let's talk about serum inhibitors and proteolytic enzymes. First and foremost, one of the most important, alpha-1 antiproteinase. Alpha-1 antitrypsin to dati. It is the principal serine protease inhibitor in the plasma. Marami siyang inhibit na enzyme sa plasma. Main regulatory ito siya na protein sa plasma. It is synthesized by the liver cells and macrophage. It inhibits trypsin, elastase, and other serine proteases, and at least 75 polymorphs. Please take note, deficiency of this protein can lead to emphysema and liver diseases. And smoking can also inhibit alpha-1 antiproteinase. Ito yung kanyang function. It inactivates your trypsin, chymotrypsin, elastase, thrombin, and plasmin. Those are very dangerous enzymes pag uncontrolled. Elastase mainly sa lungs. Pag hindi siya makontrol sa lungs, wala kang alpha-1 antitrypsin, excessive function of your elastase will lead to emphysema, as well as your thrombin sa coagulation cascade. Sige-sige lang ang paghimo mo ng clots kasi hindi na i-inhibit ng alpha-1 antitrypsin, delikado rin. Pwede kang magkaroon ng clot, bumara, stroke. So alpha-1 antitrypsin is a very, very important plasma protein. It rises during severe infection, necrosis, and acute inflammation. Alpha-2 macroglobulin. This one is a very unique protein kasi para siyang tanim. It comprises 8 to 10% of the total protein and is synthesized by your monocytes, hepatocytes, and your astrocytes. Astrocytes are usually parang protective cells sa brain. It inhibits and promotes clearance of many proteases with a pan-protease inhibitor, aka venous flytrap. Meron siyang tinatawag na bait domain. Same as to your venous flytrap, meron siya talagang bait na ipapakita sa enzyme. That is your 35 residue near the polypeptide center and attached to your cysteine glutamine residue. It also functions as your zinc and some cytokines, transport protein siya. Ito yung tinatawag kanina na venous flytrap. Nakikita nyo to siya? Itong triangle na to. That is the bait of your alpha-2 macroglobulin. And once na makita to ng protease, the tendency ng protease is pag makita niya yung 35 amino acid residue na yan, they tend to go bind itself And yung gagawin naman ng alpha-2 macroglobulin, i-inhibit niya yung pag-bind sa kanya, parang itra-trap niya. Tapos ita-transfer na siya. That's the inhibitory function of your alpha-2 macroglobulin. Please take note, venous flytrap, tapos yung kanyang bait domain. Siya yung, pag may marinig kayong bait domain, si alpha-2 macroglobulin yan yung dinidescribe. Kasi siya lang yung unique na function na nag-exhibit as flytrap. Then amyloidosis. Accumulation of insoluble aggregates of proteins in the interstitial spaces of cells. Mainly sa secondary structure niya as beta-plated sheets. Also contain the P component more related to your C-reactive protein and divided into two. Your primary amyloidosis, accumulation of fragments of light chains of immunoglobulins. Mamaya, i-discuss na natin yung immunoglobulins actually. Pero please take note, primary amyloidosis, light chains of your immunoglobulins. Secondary amyloidosis, serum amyloid A. Yung kanyang structure, same as a lipoprotein yan siya. Then we have your familial amyloidosis, accumulation of mutated forms of plasma proteins. Para hindi nyo amyloidosis, aggregation of plasma proteins, specifically, primarily, light chains. Ito yung itsura niya. Ma-encounter nyo to sa histology, sa pathology ninyo. This is glomerulus, normal glomerulus. Okay, sa kidney. Sa inyong left. Sa right naman, amyloidosis. Yan na pinkish na smooth. Mga light chains yan na protein ng immunoglobulin. Diyan yan siya sumusuksok. Kasi hindi siya nalalabas sa urine, nasa-stack up siya sa glomerulus mo. Tapos nagkakaroon ka ng renal failure. Third part ng ating discussion is your immunoglobulins and complement. What are your immunoglobulins? They are oligomeric glycoproteins synthesized, please take note, not by the liver, but the plasma cells on a form of mature B cells and is a part of your adaptive immunity. Merong tayong two kinds of immunity, your adaptive and innate immunity. And your immunoglobulins, please take note, is part of your adaptive immunity. It is a Y-shaped tetramer, makikita nyo naman dito, and has two subunits, two identical heavy, yung violet na color, ito siya. That is your heavy chain, yung nasa gitna. And, meron naman tayong light chain, yung color green. Yan, that is your light chain. Sa amyloidosis, sa primary amyloidosis, yan yung nakikita ninyo. Ito siya. Then, the heavy chain is divided into 4 regions. One variable, yung ma-attach sa antigen, that is your variable side. And 3 constant. Ito siya. 1, 2, 3. The light chain naman, this is your constant line chain, and this is your variable. So we have 2 variable, 1 light, 1 heavy. 1 light, 1 light, 1 heavy. Yan sila. And your light chains either kappa or lambda. Kung kappa sa isa, kappa dapat rin sa isa. Kung kappa ito, kappa rin to. Kaso wala ng kappa. Lambda na lang. Lambda to silang dalawa. And it has 5 subunits or subclasses. Your IgM, the largest. IgA, the secretory. IgG, the smallest. IgE, usually sa allergies, and IgD, not yet yung kanyang function, yung elaborated yung IgD. So the subclasses of immunoglobulins is based on the constant heavy chains. Ito siya. This one is the basis for your subclasses. Kung magiging IgM siya, IgG, IgA, IgE, or IgD, it is because your constant heavy chains. So ito yung enlarged form. This is your hinge region, ha? Na-attach by your disulfide bonds. Pwede to siyang can be dissolved by your papain or your papaya enzyme. Ito yan siya. And this is your variable heavy, variable light. Combined, this is your antigen binding site. Yan. Iyan yung antigen. Antigen is the yung ina-attack ng antibody sa mga pathogens natin. When we say antigenic, it can elicit antibody. Please take note, your constant heavy chain, constant heavy region 1 and constant heavy region 2 is readily cleaved by your pepsin and your papain, also known as your hinge region. The antigen binding site, kanina, your variable regions of the heavy and light chains. Tapos yung constant heavy chain 2 and constant heavy chain 3 are responsible for the functions and effectors of your immunoglobulins. Sobrang liit lang ng gene ng tao para mag-encode ng antibody. Pero uniquely, nakaka-produce siya ng millions of antibodies, very unique antibodies, very specific antibodies. Why? First, the combinatorial mechanisms. It promotes rearrangement of the genes. Ikalawa, activation of induced histidine deaminase. It induces mutation in the genes. Yung isa, rearrangement. Yung isa, mutation. And ikatatlo, junctional diversity. Ito naman, addition and deletion of nucleotides naman. So please take note of that. Combinatorial mechanism, rearrangement, activation, induces histidine deaminase, mutation. Number 3, junctional diversity, deletion of nucleotides, addition and deletion of nucleotides. Yan yung mga primary mechanisms ng cells natin para makaproduce ng multiple antibodies, multiple unique antibodies. Meron rin tayong tinatawag na isotype switching. It is a transition from the synthesis of one class to another. Primary exposure, IgM yan. When we say primary exposure, first mong na-expose sa pathogen. Sabihin natin, Sabihin natin COVID-19. First mong na-expose sa kanya. IgM yung magre-react sa kanya. Na you have gone through your quarantine. Let's just say nag-positive ka sa swab test, nag-quarantine ka, natapos mo yung 21, nag-negative ka na sa swab test. Then second exposure mo, given the fact na dati na-expose ka na, diyan na yung isotype switching. Yung katawan mo magsasabi, alam ko na ikaw kasi na-expose na ako sa'yo dati, na-COVID na ako dati. And the antibody type na iproproduce na niya is the IgG type na. That is your so-called isotype switching. After initial exposure, there is a change of subtype of antibody. Initially, usually IgM kasi siya yung pinakamalaki, siya yung pinakamarami yung antigen antibody site. So, siya yung pwedeng randomly maka-attach to very specific IgG antibodies. Okay? So, please read on your monoclonal antibodies as an important research tool. Now, lastly, your complement. Last na to. Complement are also plasma proteins that are part of your innate immune system. Kanina, sa immunoglobulins, nasa adaptive immune system, si complement naman, part ng innate immune system. It consists of your circulating zymogens that are dormant until cleaved that generate a cascade of activation, so-called the complement cascade. It has three pathways: the classical, the alternative, and the lectin pathway. It depends lang talaga sa anong makaka-activate sa kanila. So this is the general pathway of your classical, lectin, and your alternative. Please take note, the one that activates your classical pathway is your antigen-antibody complex. The one that activates your lectin pathway is the sugar residue. Please take note, very specific, sugar residue of the pathogen. And the alternative pathway, hindi niya na kailangan ng antigen-antibody complex, diretso lang siya sa pathogen surface. From your classical pathway, C1, C1Q, C1R, C1S, it will activate your C4. Then your C4 will activate your C2. C4B2A is your so-called C3 convertase that will cleave your C3 to C3A and C3B. Now your C4B2A 3B, mahaba to talaga siya. Pero kasi nagkakabit-kabit yan sila eh. That is your so-called C5 convertase. Again, C3 convertase is your C4B2A and your C5 convertase is your C4B2A 3B. Now when C5 is cleaved, your C5B will eventually activate your C6, C7, C8, C9. Magsasama-sama yan sila. Yan yung tinatawag na membrane attack complex. That is your classical pathway. C1 activates C4. It will be cleaved to C4B or C4A. Your C4B will attach your C2 and it will cleave it. Mapupunta C2A, C2B. C4B2A is one that is known as your C3 convertase. Will cleave your C3 to C3B and C3A. And your C3B will bind to your C4B2A. That will become your C5 convertase. And once na na-cleave siya, C5B will activate C6, C7, C8, C9, and will become your membrane attack complex. The function of your membrane attack complex is to bind to the surface of your pathogen, let's say bacteria or fungi, and will make holes in it. Bubutasin niya. That is, ito na yung sinasabi yung inaano ko kanina, yung classical pathway. Activated when antibody antigen complex binds with your complement factor C1. Your C3 convertase is your C2A 4B, C5 convertase is C2A 4B3A. Tapos gagawa na siya ng membrane attack complex. Please take note, your membrane attack complex will target thioesters in your C3 and C4 reacting to the hydroxyl end of the bacterial surface. Yan siya. Balik ko lang dito. Please take note, every time nakikleave siya, dalawa yung na-form. For example, C3A, it is a mediator for your inflammation, and C3B, aside from being part of your C3 convertase, it can be used for opsonization. Opsonization is a function wherein a certain molecule will bind to another molecule to make it antigenic para masabi ng ating cell na ito antigen to ng isang pathogen, magproproduce ng antibody para dito. That is opsonization. I will expound it more sa WBCs natin. Kasi sa WBCs matatakal natin yung lymphocytes. Now, your C5 can be a mediator for inflammation. Tapos your C5b, binding site for your MAC. So the alternative pathway, it is initiated when C3 is chemically hydrolyzed by the surface of the pathogen. C3b is then binds to factor B. This complex is cleaved by factor D. And your C3b, BB, has the C5 convertase ability. Wala na siyang C3 convertase. Diretso na siya C5 convertase. Ito siya, This one. Your C5 convertase, i-convert niya yung C5 mo sa C5A to C5A and C5B. Then, same lang as to your classical pathway. Yung pinagkaiba lang nila, na sa alternative pathway, diretso nagre-react sa C3. Habang sa classical, kailangan mo pa ng C1, C4, and C2. Okay? Huwag niyo yung kalimutan. Walang C1, C4, C2 sa alternative pathway. Kaya siya tinawag na alternative. Kasi parang shortcut siya. And lastly, the lectin pathway. Lectin, generally speaking, is any protein that binds to a polysaccharide. So the pathway is activated once the complement factor mannose binding lectin, or the protein that binds to the mannose of your pathogen, activates your C4. Instead na C1, mannose binding lectin siya. Then so on and so forth na. C4, same as your classical, C4 will then activate your C2, then activate your C5, C3, then activate your C5. Yung pinagkaiba lang talaga nila, how it is activated. Ito, your lectin pathway is activated by mannose binding lectin binding to the sugar residue of the pathogen, then so on and so forth na. Activate C4, C2, then convert C3, C5, so on and so forth. So that ends my discussion on chapter 52. Any more questions? May mga tanong or clarifications? Hindi ko kayang isa-isahin kayo kasi 120 plus ata kayo or 130. So for any questions, i-chat nyo na lang ako or i-send. Send ko na lang pati yung file ngayon. Ano ba pag-send?